Shalom, this is Levi Shore. Welcome back to Sweet Good Torah. Amazing Parsha today. We're doing Parsha Vayera. We're going to learn all about the 10 Tests of Avraham. So let's jump right in. So when I was growing up, there was an amazing movie called A League of Their Own. And it was really interesting. It was about during World War II, and most of the men were away fighting in Europe and the Pacific. So they started this women's professional baseball league. So it was a great opportunity for these women athletes to get to play professional baseball. So one of the main characters was Gina Davis, and I think her character was called Dottie, and she was like the star player on the team. And the coach was Tom Hanks. And I forgot exactly what was going on, but like Dottie had got married, and she was saying all the baseball, the day in and the day out, and all the politics of the league. It was just getting too much. And she goes to the coach, she goes to Tom Hanks, that it just got too hard. So his response is really incredible. So he says. He says, it's supposed to be hard. He says, if it wasn't hard, everyone would do it. And he says, it's the hard that makes it great. And that's really the essence of this Parsha. It's the essence of really the 10 trials of Avraham. And it's the essence of our own lives. And it's the essence of all really like Jewish history. So let's dive right in. So Hashem gave Avraham throughout his life. And it really starts in Parsha, the end of Parsha Noach. The first two trials, we're going to go according to Rashi. We're going to go the 10 trials according to Rashi. Rambam has another opinion. We're going to stick with Rashi right now. And it really starts in Parsha Noach, and then it goes through Parsha Lech Lecha. And then the 10th one is the Akedah, when he binds up and he's bringing Yitzhak, Isaac, his son, as an offering. So that's the final one, the Akedah. And we'll see that during the Akedah, Avraham is called Avraham. So Hashem calls him, and he calls him Avraham, and Avraham says, Hineni, I'm here, I'm ready. Whatever you want. What do you want? And what does this mean, Avraham, Abraham? So it means that in the highest spiritual world, there's a form of our neshama, of our soul. There's the perfected form, and that's the goal of who we're supposed to be. So high up in the spiritual world, there's this form of who we're supposed to be. And Abraham, throughout his life, he completed these 10 tests, and then he had reached that point where his form, who he was down here on earth, was exactly like that perfected form up in Shemayim. And that's our goal. And maybe we're not, I don't know if we're going to reach the great heights of Avraham Avinu, but that's our goal. That's what we're trying for. We're trying to become the best version of ourselves that we can be. And all the difficulties and all the things we run into in life, that's what's really making us great. It's the hard things in life that are making us great. So let's run through the 10. And so the first one, according to Rashi, is that Avraham, like his father Terach was an idol maker, and he sold idols to the emperor, the king Nimrod. And Nimrod, after the flood, he created the first empire, and he ruled like all the people of the world. And he was leading all the people of the world to idol worship away from Hashem, away from recognizing the infinite being that's created everything and loves everyone and gives life to everyone. So it's interesting because sometimes in life we do the right thing, and sometimes other people are doing the wrong thing, and it's one of the hardest concepts of why do good things happen to bad people? Why do bad things happen to good people? And that's exactly what happened here. And Abraham had to run for his life, and he had to be in hiding for 13 years. He was thrown in a pit for 10 years, and because he was destroying the idols, and because he was standing up to Nimrod and saying that Hashem was the only God there is, there's only this one infinite being, and that these idols are worthless and useless. So Nimrod, who was the all-powerful king at the time, wanted to kill Abraham. So the very first trial, the first test, is doing the right thing, and then something bad happens to you. And it's the hardest thing we have to experience in life. We do, all the time. Sometimes we struggle really hard to do the good thing, and we do the right thing, and then it doesn't work out, and it's really frustrating. And then it's frustrating to see other people, maybe not doing such great things, and it seems to be working out for them. But the test, and we always have this test in life, is you do the good thing, you do the right thing, no matter what. So that was Abraham's first test. Now the second test is that he was thrown into the Ur Kasdim, the fiery furnace. So he stood up to Nimrod again after he was. I think there was a midrash that said he was thrown in prison for 10 years, and Nimrod took him out of prison, and basically he wanted him to bow down to like an idol or bow down to Nimrod himself. He wanted Avraham to do some kind of idol worship, some kind of avodah zarah, and basically renounce, Hashem. And Abraham refused to do it. So he stood up in front of a powerful person, the all-powerful ruler of the first empire, and he refused to do, once again, the wrong thing. He refused to do the Avera, and he stood up for the right thing. And he was thrown into a furnace. He was thrown into this extremely hot fire. And Hashem miraculously saved him. So this always doesn't always work out that we're always miraculously saved. I mean, that's not the way we should really be living our lives. But once again, we shouldn't be afraid to stand up to more powerful people if they're telling us to do wrong, or if they're trying to get us to do wrong, to do Averas. We do the Torah, we do the mitzvos, no matter who's telling us, no. And that was the second test of Abraham. And by Abraham passing all these tests, he also passed the ability to pass these tests down to all his descendants, all his children, which is us. So the third test, Abraham is commanded to leave his homeland. So Hashem says to him, he says, Lech lecha me'artzecha u'mimoladecha u'mibeis avicha. So he says, go for yourself, go. And it says, go from your land, the land, you were born in, you grew up in, u'mimoladecha, your home, your hometown, where you're from, where you were born. So we feel very comfortable in our hometown, especially if we live there a while. We have all our family and friends, and we know where everything is, and it's very comfortable. And it's very hard to uproot ourselves and go from the house of your father. And this is even more difficult because we generally follow whatever our parents do. Whatever our parents do, we generally follow, and it's very hard to change that. So if someone is raised by tzaddikim, if someone's raised by very good people, it's great because you just keep going in their ways. But it's hard sometimes when, our parents make mistakes, and it's hard for us to change and not make the same mistakes. And that's what Abraham had to do. His father Terach was like the royal, idol maker, and he was very wealthy and powerful in this empire. And Abraham had to go and give all that up. And this is a test of like Amunah and Bitachon, trust in Hashem. And it's scary, and sometimes we have to leave that safe, I use the word safe space all the time. Sometimes we have to leave that safe space. If you really want to be great in this world, sometimes you have to leave your hometown, you have to leave what's comfortable, and you have to leave habits and activities that aren't good. Sometimes, there's things that have been established in your life that aren't good, and you have to give them up. I mean, people fight against addictions and, bad mitos, bad character traits, and we have to leave that. And Abraham had this amazing ability to just leave it all behind, and he trusted in Hashem, and he didn't even know where he was going, and he just took his whole family, and they left. And that was the third test. The fourth test, and this is even crazier, he leaves it all behind. He leaves it all behind. So he should come into Eretz Yisrael, Eretz Canaan at the time, and it should be all kinds of blessings and wonderful miracles and everything happen, and everything good happening to him. And what happens? So you take this leap of Amunah, this leap of faith as they call it, and you leave and you put your trust in Hashem and you get there. And then what happens? Nope. There's a famine. The next test. The fourth test is a famine. And so he finally gets to where he's going. This is where he's supposed to be. This is where Hashem told him to go, and he has to leave. And it's a famine. So sometimes, once again, you're doing the right thing, and then you're faced with a test on top of a test. Out of, what's it called? Out of the skillet, out of the frying pan into the fire. And he has to leave. He gets there to Eretz Canaan, to the land of Israel, and he has to leave. And he has to go down to Mitzrayim. And there's a famine, and now he has to trust in Hashem. Will also provide, just as Hashem told him to come here, now Hashem is telling him to go to Mitzrayim, to Egypt. And Hashem will also be there. So it's so sometimes we take a big leap, and then it doesn't immediately pay off. And we just have to keep persevering no matter where it takes us. We have to be patient. And that famous statement of Ish Gamzu, the teacher, Rabbi Akiva, whatever happened to him, he said, Gamzu Latova. And it's not easy. And it's not easy sometimes where we're doing the right thing and it's not working out. And we see people not doing the right thing and it's working out for them. And we just got to keep on, and you got to be patient. And you just got to wait to see what Hashem's unfolding. Gamzo Latova. This is also for the good. And Avraham just kept going. He went down to Mitzrayim. And then he finally gets down to Egypt. And the fifth test, then his wife, Sarah, is kidnapped by the Pharaoh. So it gets, the test is getting like the levels going higher and higher, like in a video game. Each level is harder and harder. And that's a deeper and deeper test of Amunah and Bitachon, trust in Hashem, that it's going to be for the best. That the Gam Zo Latova, this will also be for the good. And Hashem puts the plagues onto the house of Paro, and Sarah is returned unharmed. So then the sixth test. Now, Abraham had his nephew Lot, also called Lot, and Lot was his student, and Lot kind of started going away from him. And Lot went after the material. He went to the 5 wealthy cities of Sodom and Gomorrah, Sodom and Amorah, and the 5 lush cities around what's now the Dead Sea, now this cursed area, this salty, cursed area. But at the time, it was beautiful, fertile land, garden. It was called the Gan Hashem in last week's Parsha, the Garden of Hashem. It was beautiful. These 5 metropolises. People go to the big cities to make the big salaries and the wealth and the materialism. And that's what Lot did. So Lot leaves Abraham. His student leaves him for the materialism, for the wealth. Leaves the way of the Torah. And what does Abraham do in the 6th test? When the 4 kings come and fight the 5 kings of Sodom and Amorah, Sodom and Gomorrah, the 5 kings of Sodom and Gomorrah are defeated by the 4 kings, and they kidnap Lot. They kidnap Abraham's nephew. And even his nephew that left him and is leaving the ways of Torah, what does Abraham do? He chases after him. Because family and friends is important. And even if even if they're struggling and they're not doing, and someone's not doing well and they take a bad turn, if they need help, we give them help. It's an important lesson. It's an important test. That even if someone mistreats us, if someone needs help, sometimes you got to overlook it and give them help. And it makes us greater. This is what makes a person great. This is it. And it's not easy, and it's the hard that makes it great. So then he gets back Lot. Hashem gives him a miraculous victory. He defeats the 4 kings and rescues Lot. The 7th test, the bris bein habasarim, the covenant between the parts. So Hashem makes the covenant. He makes the actual covenant with Abraham. It's the covenant with the Jewish people. And Hashem tells Abraham that if he accepts this bris, this covenant, that his descendants are going to suffer. They're going to have to also be they're going to be exiled to Mitzrayim for 400 years. And they're going to suffer the exiles of the 4 empires, of Babel, of Babylon, of Paras and Media, Persia and Media, of Yavan and the Greek Empire, and the current exile. 219 years going on, we're about up to 220 years of the Golas Edom, of the exile of Rome, of Edom, and we're still in it. And Abraham had to accept the bris, the covenant, knowing that his children and his descendants would suffer, but that it was worth it, that this battle was worth it to bring knowledge of Hashem and Hashem's Torah and the knowledge of the mitzvos. And he knew that this would make the world better, and it was worth suffering for these 5 exiles, that his descendants would have to suffer for these 5 exiles, and he himself suffered these exiles. And it was worth it, and the fight's worth it, because it's the hard that makes it great. It's a world that is not accepting Hashem and the Torah and the mitzvos, but the Torah, learning Torah and doing the mitzvos makes us great, and one day the world will see. They will see the struggle and what it's done. All the suffering and the pain and the exile, it is elevating us and is making us greater. It's making us kinder, more compassionate, a caring nation. And one day the world is going to see what all this has done. They're going to see this 4,000 years of struggle, and they're going to see us become a goy kodesh, a holy nation. So the bris bein habasarim was the 7th test. And then 8 was that Abraham had to seal the covenant. He had to get the bris milah. He had to get the circumcision. And he was 99 when he did it. It's a 99 man subjecting himself to this physical pain, but it's the stringencies of the bris that was the test. Accepting the 613 mitzvos, accepting the Torah, accepting the Ol HaShemayim, the yoke of Shemayim, the yoke of heaven. Accepting that Hashem is the true Melech, the true King of the world, and accepting that also elevates us. It makes us greater. The person that's does whatever pleasure he wants is actually the slave. He becomes his own slave to his own desires. But the Torah is the true cherus. It was the engraving on the luchos of the 10 Commandments, and that's what gives us cherus. That's what gives us freedom. So the 8th test was the bris milah, the circumcision. And then the 9th test. So Sarah, his wife, didn't didn't give birth to a son for 10 years. And then Sarah told him to marry Hagar, the princess of the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh had given Hagar to be a servant to Sarah, after they left Mitzrayim, after they left Egypt. And Sarah made the ultimate sacrifice and wanted Abraham to have children, so gave Hagar to be a second wife to Abraham, and then Abraham and Ishmael, who's the father of the Arab nations. And then the test was that Sarah saw that Ishmael was not following the Torah and was tormenting Yitzhak, was tormenting Isaac, and that Hagar and Ishmael had to be driven out of the camp. And Hashem told Abraham to listen to Sarah. Because you would think, oh, maybe it's just a jealous wife, jealous of her son, for Ishmael. But Hashem said, no, you have to. And it was one of the ultimate tests that he had to drive his son and one of his wives, he had to drive them away. But he blessed Ishmael that he would become a great nation. And the 12 sons of Ishmael became the 12 princes. And we can see the power of the Arab nations in the world today. We see that they're a powerful force, in the whole political structure of the world right now. When Abraham, the 9th test was to drive away, Ishmael and Hagar. And then the final test, the Akedah Yitzhak. So Hashem says to him, he says, once again, Lech lecha el eretz ha-Moriah. It's fascinating. So the 3rd test, according to Rashi, was Lech lecha, leaving his hometown, leaving his land, leaving the ways of his father. According to the Rambam, that's actually, Lech lecha is the 1st test. But okay, here, according to Rashi, it's a 3rd, but it's interesting parallel to 2 Lech lechas. So the first Lech lecha is Sur Meirah, leaving the bad behind. But the 2nd Lech lecha is going to Mount Moriah, and that's Osei Tov, do good. And now he's going to something. He's going to the land of Moriah. And what is Moriah? Moriah is the mountain in Yerushalayim, in Jerusalem. Moriah is the mountain where the Akedah Yitzhak took place. And it is the little mountain in Jerusalem that the first temple built by Shlomo HaMelech, by King Solomon, was built. And the 2nd temple built by Ezra and Nehemiah was built. And Bizrat Hashem, when Hashem sends Mashiach in the future, the 3rd temple, the 3rd Beis HaMikdash will be built on Har HaMoriah, Mount Moriah. And that's where Avraham had to bring his beloved son. He was 100 years old. He waited 100 years for Yitzhak. He waited 100 years for his son. And now, at 137, he had to offer Yitzhak. Hashem was telling him to offer his son. So who would carry on now? Who would carry on all the teachings of Abraham? Who would carry on Vayikra Hashem Hashem? Who would continue to call out in the name of Hashem in the world? Who would continue to learn the Torah? Who would continue to do the mitzvahs if he was going to have to offer Yitzhak? But Hashem was just testing. It was just a test. Hashem does not want, it's the last thing he wants is the sacrifice of our children and ourselves. He wants us, b'chai b'chem, to live in the Torah and the mitzvos. And it was a test. And instead of Yitzhak, Hashem gives Abraham a ram. And it's interesting because I think it's the left horn of the ram became the shofar that Hashem blows at Har Sinai, at Mount Sinai. When Hashem gives us the Torah, Hashem blows this mighty shofar blast to give us the Torah. And the right horn of the ram, the right horn is another shofar that we will see in the future, that Hashem will blow this mighty shofar blast sometime in the coming of Mashiach and the gathering of the ingathering of the Jewish people back, all the Jewish people returning back to now our homeland. Lech lecha. We will all begin the process again. And Lech lecha, we will all leave and go back to our true homeland, our true home, Eretz Yisrael. In Bezrat Hashem, we will go back up that mountain. We will have another Lech lecha to go back up that mountain of Har HaMoriah and see the rebuilding of the Beis HaMikdash. No longer will our children need to be sacrificed. No longer will we need to be sacrificed. Because we will finally have that shalom of this bris that Abraham started, this covenant between us and Hashem. And when the world sees this peace and the bracha and the blessing that rains down on the Jewish people, the shalom will spread throughout the world. And finally we will have the world peace, where the world knows that Hashem hu echad, that Hashem is one, ushem echad, that Hashem is one infinite being that's created everything and loves everyone. and that there's only one name of Hashem, and that's the only name, of this one infinite being. So B'ezrat Hashem, we'll see these amazing things, and B'ezrat Hashem, we will take our own tests, our own personal tests that Hashem is giving us, and elevate ourselves and make ourselves great, so we can reach that form, that form that we all have in Shemayim. We can become greater people and the greatest versions of ourselves. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope to see you back again soon on Sweet Good Torah.